Hello. Hello, my friends. Welcome to our 16th DLD Sync session, our last session before we go in our well deserved summer holidays. I will already miss you now. Today, we will listen to our impressive friend, Dr. William Lee. He's a world renowned physician, a scientist, an author, and a health futurist. Some people say, and one of them is me, he's a revolutionary. He's also the CEO and co-founder of the Angiogenesis Foundation, which dedicated itself for the fight against global diseases. For the fight against global diseases. What a fight! Global diseases. William gave an outstanding talk this year at DLD Munich conference about his New York Times best-selling book. Here it is, Eat to be Diseased, where he showed us an insight on how we can protect one of our most important human assets, the most important asset, our health, just by changing our diet. Since then, with the developing of COVID 19 and the impending second wave in some countries, a lot has changed for all of us. What hasn't changed is the importance of our health, now more than ever. That is why Dr. Lee is now going to talk about how we can increase our health defenses against not only viruses, but all kinds of diseases. How we get a new consciousness about us, our body, our diets, about our being. Thanks for being here, Will. The floor is yours. I'm so happy that you are here.
Well, thank you, Steffi. Like every person watching this DLD Sync, I too have begun to reconsider health in the new context of the COVID era, which means that my life, like everyone else, like yours, had continued on its path until unexpectedly, in the beginning of 2020, we suddenly confronted something that was unexpected, and that is not just a virus, but our own individual vulnerabilities. And this has led us to actually reconceptualize the importance of protecting our health and the importance of our health defenses in a way that we have never before. And while we are waiting for a vaccine and effective antiviral treatments, and while we're waiting for the dynamics of illness to change and policies to be adopted that will help secure safety on a global level, there is one intervention that all of us share, and that is our need to choose our food to eat. And so what I'd like to do now is begin my presentation by talking about how our current reality is shaping our future, our new future, by transforming the food culture. And so with that, I would like to begin. The first thing that I always think about in terms of the future is to be reminded about the joys that I've experienced in the past. And I think this is something very human that we all relate to, is we tend to remember great peaks and great troughs. And while we're in a trough, we are remembering the times when we can all celebrate together in close proximity and share the joys of our life. In fact, it wasn't that long ago. It was just New Year's Eve, where celebrations took place around the world. Here you can see in London around the Thames, with tens of thousands of people gathered around the wheel to observe the fireworks in the Kremlin. Similarly, you can see these throngs of people celebrating together at a time when we're all welcoming the new year. And here in Paris, tens of thousands of people on the Champs-Élysées, again, in front of celebration. This is also the famous Times Square, which in the United States, you can see at the moment that the great ball drops and the new year hits, people throw themselves together in hugs and kisses, which of course today is almost unthinkable in terms of our new reality. And this new reality is due to this one dark object that you see in the center of the screen. And this is the SARS-CoV-2 virus, the coronavirus. And if you actually lean back and squint your eyes at that black spot in the center, you will see the spikes, the spike proteins emerging from its borders. And that is actually how this virus, the novel coronavirus, sticks to our human cells. That gray shape on the left is actually a red blood cell in the body. Now, everybody has seen one or more graphs, and there's been more than 16 million people around the world. And the point of this is to really show how we are still united as humans by the vulnerability to this disease. And you can see in this red dots all across the world how we've all been joined together in this against this threat, and therefore we are all united by the need to actually find better health. And in fact, if you take a look at the new cases that is going on, and I know these data are changing so quickly every on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. I just wanted to again share with you the commonality, the common bonds of dealing with this. If you take a look at every country has its own unique curve here in terms of new cases. But at the end of the day, this is humanity in 2020, united by this pandemic. What are we learning? What are we sharing? What are we intuiting the future is going to look like? That's a very important question. Before I talk about the future, I just want to remark on the past, because humans have actually contended with pandemics before. And this is an image of Venice, Italy in the 1600s, so almost 400 years ago. There was a plague that swept through northern Italy, causing untold suffering and death. And at that time, families took their children and elderly and ran behind the stone walls of their homes, where they hid, afraid to go out. And what were they doing? They were waiting for the town crier to announce that it was safe to go back into the village square again. When I actually was experiencing the lockdown during the peak at the time of the first wave, it reminded me, the situation reminded me of the situation in Venice, where we all fled and hid, waiting for instructions from the outside. Not so ironically, this doctor is wearing the doctor's mask, this beak, which at the time we had so little understanding. They had so little understanding of what caused the plague, what made it contagious. They stuffed the beak with herbs in order to be thinking that the smell would actually mask the contagion. Similarly, at the first wave, we had almost no understanding of the virus causing COVID. And so we too wore masks without much understanding. Well, 400 years later, we do have some tremendous advantages over our brethren, our fellow humans from sort of 1600s. And that is that we have science. And science is always on our side. And science leads the way, even in darkness, like a headlight. It shines a path so that we can actually illuminate the path forward, even if it's step by step. And I just wanted to share with you one quick glimpse at what we know about this virus, which is a respiratory virus that we inhale, breathe in through our nose, and it gets into our lungs. And the fact that it is a respiratory virus is the reason why the masks became so central to the effective control. Now, obviously, masks, social distancing, hand washing, testing, tracing, isolation, all these things, when successfully done, was able to help a society regain control of itself so it could cautiously move forward. Social distancing is another startling requirement that we are now all contending with is at a time when we actually want to be together, we have to be apart. Well, interestingly, in the era of technology, we are in some ways closer together with our ability to communicate virtually, but physically, we still need to stay apart. And part of the reason is that this respiratory virus does a lot more than damage the lungs. My group in the spring of this year set out to understand what else this novel coronavirus does. And we looked in autopsy tissue of people that actually had died of COVID-19 and found something remarkable, which is that the virus does infect the lung, but then it makes a beeline, a rapid path to infect blood vessels, where it can then actually damage the lining of our circulation, thereby causing blood clots, but also probably other organ injury as well. Some of the long-term damage from COVID is very different than we see in influenza, SARS, MERS. We're seeing damage in the brain, seen here with the double arrows pointing to two unusual white inflammatory masses in the brain, or even in the toes, the so-called COVID toe, which is inflammation of the toes. And what connects the lungs, the heart, the brain, and the toes are circulation. And that's actually what we published in May of this year in the New England Journal of Medicine, showing that COVID-19 is not just a respiratory illness, but it affects the rest of our body through our blood vessels. And when our blood vessels grow and protect and nourish our organs, it's called angiogenesis. And there is a close tie in between our circulation, our vascular health, and this virus itself. So where are we today? We are waiting for a vaccine. We are waiting for effective treatments. We no longer wish to hide. So it's time to actually regain control of our lives. Avoidance is actually being careful and taking great care, but immunity is something that we do have control over in ways that the pharmaceutical industry has not yet delivered to us, and the medical establishment does not yet have in its armamentarium. And our immune defenses against viruses, in fact, is a battle that has been waged for ages since the beginning of humanity. And that is because our body exists in a world that is replete with viruses everywhere in our environment. And there's an epic war from the time we're born until our very last breath between our body and the viruses that might try to invade us. And that's through our immune system. And so one of the real lights that have actually emerged in an otherwise dark chamber of this pandemic is the reconsideration of how every individual can make a choice concerning food, and how foods can actually help to deliver health by activating our immunity. This is an area that I'm actively working on and leading, and trying to really gain more attention, get the resources to be able to focus so that we can actually move forward together, not by separation, but by togetherness, because food is yet another binding force to our world. And of course, these are pictures that I've taken in some of the beautiful markets around the world that I've actually frequented. And if you look at the colorful nature, the beautiful, colorful nature of the marketplace, which I think everybody can respond to, even if it's in a grocery store, supermarket, in the produce section, the color is striking because this is Mother Nature's way of sending a visual signal, a cue, that she has imbued the food with one or more natural chemicals that are serving to help defend the plant, the fruit or the vegetable, against insects, against fungi that might actually invade the plant, destroy the plant, and also for reproductive health, to attract bees and other butterflies that would pollinate, help to pollinate the plant to allow its survival. So color in nature, in our foods, actually reflect the defensive nature of nature itself. And these are called bioactives. And this is just a sampling of some of the bioactives that attract bees, as an example. And some of them are also pigments, and some of them also confer the flavors that we actually deeply enjoy in our food. So, one of the things that I think we're moving towards is away from this idealistic notion that there's a superfood or superberry that's going to solve all of our problems. That was sort of a commercial conceit, a trope, as it were, of the past. In fact, now, when we've been confronted with the very stark realization that our nutrition can significantly impact our well-being, uh, especially in a pandemic, we realize it's not just about food, it's about how your body responds to what we put inside it. So I want to share with you some of this knowledge of the health defenses of our body, our circulation, angiogenesis, our DNA, be able to protect ourselves, our ability to regenerate from the inside out, our gut health, our microbiome, and of course, our immunity. This is one of the top priorities going forward that we're going to be aware of now in a way that we've never thought about before. How do we actually protect ourselves? Well, the immune system is incredibly complicated. If you even ask a doctor who's not an immunologist to explain the immune system to you, I think that they would stop and have to gather themselves to explain this complex ecosystem of cells. I want to just simplify it to share with you that your immune system, our immune system, is really an army of super soldiers that defend our body against viruses, bacteria, and even cancer cells growing inside us. And this army of super soldiers all have different weapons. They are equipped and trained to do different tasks. And some of the names that they carry, I've shown here: T cells, NK cells, dendritic cells, B cells, are less important for the everyday person to understand uh, uh, than to just recognize that the body knows how to defend itself, and how we feed our soldiers, how we supply the troops, can make a big difference in terms of the resources and energy they actually have to defend our bodies. So, although there are many more than 10, I want to share with you 10 things that you should eat that we've learned during the pandemic as it relates to immunity. And I'll share with you some examples of each one, but also tell you how I think it's so easy to incorporate these into everyday life. In other words, unlike the past where food and health and diet was about excluding foods from what we eat, cut this out, cut that out, deprivation, avoidance, shame, fear about foods, we are now beginning to realize we can lean into the foods. We can explore what Mother Nature has imbued foods with to our benefit, and find ways within our humanity, and to look at our cultures and look at our ability to innovate in terms of cooking and techniques to actually light up the plate in front of us, so that we can light up our immune system inside us. So let me just give you a couple of examples. Vitamin C, we know, is very important because going all the way back to the age of pirates on the high seas, we knew that if you were deficient of vitamin C, your body's skin and mucous membrane defenses, like in your gums, would break down. That was scurvy. We also know that vitamin C helps our immune cells kill microbes. It helps clear the cells that have actually been infected by a virus, that have been over. Then the cells actually are killed by the immune system. We need to be able to sweep away, have a cleaning crew remove those infected cells, and also to produce antibodies. Vitamin C plays a role, as well as to control inflammation. And this is an area of potential confusion, because we hear, for example, with COVID, that there's a great inflammatory response, a cytokine storm, and we want to get rid of the inflammation. What I would like to share with you is that inflammation is the body's way of actually waging this war. There are inflammation super soldiers, or super soldiers that carry out inflammation. What we don't want them to do is to exceed their job description, to overplay their own role in the mission. So, again, the body knows what to do. We just have to be able to enable it to actually get to that control. What are some foods with vitamin C? Well, we think of oranges, citrus, of course, but guava, which is a tropical fruit, a very delicious, subtle tropical fruit, not very sweet, is packed with vitamin C. And it can be juiced. It could be eaten raw. It could be used in cooking. So many ways to actually use guava. And if you don't have access to guava, another a rich source of vitamin C is the red bell pepper, which is really packed with not only vitamin C but other healthy bioactives as well. And again, as I show you these pictures, if your brain is starting to activate your food senses, then I've achieved my goal, because health is very much part of our senses, which is what our motivation is to actually choose foods. Mushrooms have been shown to activate in humans the secretion of a protective antibody called IgA. The IgA antibody is present in our saliva and in our mucous membranes, and it's present, and it's in part influenced by a natural chemical called beta-D-glucan, which is a kind of soluble fiber that's found in the cap of the mushroom, but it's also found in the stalk of the mushroom. And so many different types of mushrooms that I love to have. The question is, which types of mushrooms actually have the greatest amount of beta-glucan? They all have it, but it turns out that the golden chanterelle mushroom is one of the mushrooms we see in the marketplace that has the highest levels. And so again, unlike the past where there was generalization about one type of superfoods, we are now beginning to realize that among a particular type of food, some are first or higher among equals. And so the chanterelle mushroom is one of them. But mushrooms aren't always available year-round. And so fortunately, dried mushrooms can also facilitate this, because the fiber is also present in the dried mushroom, which then you can cook throughout the year and find different recipes to use them as well. Another food to talk about is broccoli sprouts. And I'm a big champion of these 3 to 4 day old broccoli sprouts. They're very tender. They are nutty flavored. They don't have the strong flavor of sulfurous flavor of a grown-up broccoli. And they have about 10 to 100 times more of the natural chemical called sulforaphane that helps to boost our immune system and quell inflammation. But a study that was done in North Carolina showed remarkably in young healthy volunteers who were getting a vaccine, a virus vaccine, this in case was to the influenza virus through the nose, that if they actually gave 2 cups per day of a shake made with broccoli sprouts, that those who had the vaccine and drank the shake, the broccoli sprout shake, had 22 times amplification of their natural killer T cells, or super soldiers against the virus. And those cells had more killing power. Their ammo was much more powerful. And when they actually swabbed the nose to look for the virus was much less common, almost undetectable in those who had the broccoli sprouts. This isn't food versus medicine. This is food and medicine. And one of the interesting things to think about as we look forward to a COVID-19 vaccine is what types of foods might help the vaccine actually work better. If you can't find broccoli sprouts, a regular broccoli will do the same for you. Remember, the stem has this natural sulforaphane compound at 2 times the level as the tops. So cook with the stem as the tops. And if you don't like the stems or the tops to eat them in a saute, you can also make them into a soup. So many different ways to make a single plant based food versatile and appealing to our diet. Olive oil, we know as part of the Mediterranean diet, is generally healthy. It's a healthy fat, but we're now beginning to realize is one of the natural chemicals called hydroxytyrosol activates one of our immune super soldiers called the T cells. And the hydroxytyrosol is present in the olive oil, but it's also present in the watery part of the olive itself, the meat of the olive. And so therefore, you can cook with the olive. You don't only have olive oil. I mean, you really don't want to be in consuming tons of olive oil every day, but you can actually eat olives and cook them in foods together to amplify flavor, and a lot of different ways to actually cook with olives and olive oil. Oysters are a surprise as well. These are studies that have been done out of Asia, because in Asia, oysters that are rarely eaten on the half shell, as in most Western countries. oysters that are often opened up and steamed and cooked. And if the oysters are not perfect for serving, grade A oysters, oysters that are left behind, grade B, C, and D, and lower, are cooked down into oyster sauce. And researchers in China have actually shown that cooked down Pacific oysters actually have the proteins and polysaccharides that activate the immune system and enlarge our immune organs, the spleen and the thymus, and they double the super soldier power of the natural killer immune cells. In lab research where you're using the immune system to kill cancer, you can actually show a 48% reduction in tumor growth. So oysters, some people like, some people don't like, but here's another really beautiful way of combining oysters in its sauce with a broccoli relative. In this case, it's Chinese broccoli sauteed with oyster sauce. And this is something that can be done, in a very delicious, swift way. Look at that beautiful green. Those colors really speak to what Mother Nature has imbued the food with. And anybody who's actually tasted oyster sauce knows that there's this incredible umami flavor. So this isn't just about science. This is really about our culture, our nature, our humanity, our taste buds, and how we think about the versatility of our foods. Who wouldn't want to eat this? The blackberries, blueberries, the colors themselves speak to us. They are visually, they activate our brains in ways that go far beyond our taste buds. And the dark coloring, the beautiful dark blue black coloring of berries, these berries actually are a natural dye called anthocyanins. And researchers have shown that anthocyanins activate, again, our immune super soldiers called natural killer cells. And in fact, some studies have been done to look at athletes who are training and in competition. And what we do know is that when we actually compete, our body, in addition to actually working our muscles, our immune systems are activated by exercise, and they peak during the exercise. And when we stop, when we finish a run or a marathon, the immune system that was elevated suddenly plummets back down to its basic level. But researchers have shown that if you eat a couple of handfuls of blueberries before you go on an exercise, a workout, so to speak, that the elevation of the workout of your immune system with the blueberries will propel the rise of those T cells, those immune super soldiers, for days after you stopped exercising. So again, it's not the food alone, it's how it responds and interacts with your body, including exercise, which we know is actually a very important component. Cranberries is another unique food with anthocyanins, and these have been studied to show that they can activate the delta gamma T cells. Again, the actual name of the immune cells are less important than to know that they activate your immune super soldiers. And how many of you have heard of this long standing aphorism that cranberry juice can help women decrease the risk of a bladder infection by changing the pH of their urine? Well, we know that that's probably not the case. The pH is probably less important than the fact that the natural dye in the cranberry, when it's absorbed in the stomach, prompts the immune system to produce these higher levels of these super soldiers called delta gamma T cells that actually are first responders in the lining of our tissues and organs, including the bladder, to fight back against invading bacteria or viruses. So again, another beautiful berry. Now, I just want to close by showing you something about the microbiome, our healthy gut bacteria in our immune system, because we've got 37 trillion bacteria in our body, just about as many bacteria as human cells. And these bacteria are actually incredibly important because they live in our intestines. And we know that 70% of our immune system actually resides in our intestines. In fact, if you were to actually slice the intestines through the middle, it'd be like cutting through a garden hose. You would actually see the bacteria is inside the hose, in the lining, and then the immune system is filled like a layer of jelly within the lining of the hose itself. And just like a college student that's living with roommates in a dorm that has very thin walls, the bacteria can pound on the intestines and signal and communicate with the immune cells like college roommates can through the cell walls. So this is the close interrelationship between our gut bacteria and our immune system. And in fact, this has been studied in the context of COVID. This was a study from China where they looked at healthy people and tried to find out what type of markers were present in their blood that would protect them against getting COVID-19. And it turned out that there was one marker called interferon gamma, which is one of our body's natural immune virus fighting cytokines. So it's a good cytokine that helps fight virus. And then they actually took a look at which gut bacteria in people correlated with that good beneficial antivirus cytokine. And they found various bacteria that seemed to be correlate with our body's ability to produce that cytokine, which lowered the risk of getting COVID. Then they went back to take a look at which foods were eaten by these people that actually had the unique bacterial signature that correlated with that important virus fighting cytokine. So you can kind of see the chain reaction between what we eat and our gut bacteria and our gut bacteria and our immune system with the ability to defend against the virus. This is really a daisy chain, a domino effect of how our food is connected to our health in a pretty profound way. So this is at early days of research because we're still learning a lot about this disease state. But what was amazing is they found a number of foods that were beneficial. And I just want to show you two of them that were found to actually be beneficial. So it turned out that green and black tea, but especially green tea, contains a natural chemical called EGCG. It's a catechin. You've probably heard of it if you are actually an aficionado of tea, one of the healthful polyphenols. But in that study, it was correlated with lactobacillus in the gut, a particular species that was then correlated with interferon gamma. This is the body's natural virus killer, so is our defense system. And intake of green tea correlated with that microbiome, which correlated with the virus killer. Another correlation was found with dietary fiber and polyunsaturated fatty acids, healthy fats, which are present in nuts. For example, pecans, which are one of my favorites, so easy to eat and roast and cook with. And the polyunsaturated fatty acids was correlated with another healthy gut bacteria called ruminococcus. This ruminococcus was then correlated with a body's ability to produce interferon gamma, the virus killer, again. So I've just shown you 10 foods that in the era of the pandemic, we are now beginning to look at foods and our health through a completely different lens. I've written about more than 200 foods in Eat to Beat Disease. And if you want to follow me and learn about more foods that I'm continuously analyzing and publishing and spreading the word on, you can come follow me on social media. But what I really wanted to be able to do is to talk about transformation, because the transformation is really recognizing that indeed food is our medicine, but it's not about salesmanship. It's not about snake oil. It's about the real bona fide science of understanding how foods contain substances that when placed in our body, help our body to respond, including through our immune system in meaningful ways. So where are some of the future of food transformation? I'm going to give you a couple of ideas of I think where we're going to go. I think that in the future, we're going to be talking about the functionality of foods. What can the food do alone and in combinations? How do they synergize and combine with each other so that 1 + 1 is equal to 3 or 5? We're going to be looking at dosing of foods. If food is medicine and medicines have doses, how much do we need to eat and how often? That is a simple question that still has a lot of research to be done, but what an amazing thing to know exactly how many apples a day you need to eat to keep a doctor away. Every individual is different, so personalized and very precise nutrition tailored to an individual at a particular time in their lives is incredibly important to get away from generalizations that are out there. Prescription diets. I foresee a future in which medical doctors, physicians will become much more educated in the kind of material I just shared with you. And they may, in fact, in the future be writing prescriptions. A few doctors are doing that in the United States already for their patients with diabetes and heart disease and other conditions to try to help them improve their overall lives, and they take literally the prescription to the grocery store as a shopping list. And in some cases, in the United States, some insurance companies are actually paying for the foods or underwriting some of the foods that are actually purchased. Fresh foods we know are good. A real opportunity for innovation is to say, can we process the foods in a way that can be scaled? Fresh is difficult to scale, but is there a way of preserving the goodness? We know that dried is okay. We know that long storage of some foods like purple potatoes can actually enhance the polyphenols, but are there ways that we can actually develop food technologies to preserve the benefits of foods, whether it's drying, whether it's powderizing, a number of different ways. Right now, ultra processed foods are really regarded as villains, and perhaps for justifiable reasons. But that doesn't mean that the future has to be that way. We could actually work together. Someone like me taking life science with food scientists, with food technologies, with innovators and business leaders, and put together a plan, a roadmap to be able to really create scalable food that actually contains the goodness of Mother Nature. And then finally, I shared with you an example of food plus medicine, not food versus medicine. I'm a doctor who believes profoundly in the importance of the right medicine for the right person at the right time. But food is the missing tool in the toolbox that might make our medicines better. They might also help us avoid the need for medicines. But if we did need medicine, what should we be eating? And in what we're facing today with the pandemic, as we are thinking about vaccines, one of the really big questions is, could our diet actually influence the activity, the benefits of the vaccine itself? So I'll just close with this quote by an astronaut named Ronald Guerin, who said, "Awe and wonder are the secret ingredients to creating a better future." And I think that out of the pandemic, we are actually beginning to shine a new light on the secret ingredients of creating the future of food as medicine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, William. This was amazing. This was an amazing run through about, I'm hungry now. I want to go to eat, and broccoli and pecan. I want to start to eat your wonderful lineup of fresh and healthy food. I have a question. Some of your ideas, we know that we have to eat fresh foods. We know we have to eat nuts. We know these kind of things. But nevertheless, many people in our Western societies are obese, are ill, eat too much, eat the wrong things, whatever. So to get you this needed transformation, we need behavior change. What is your take on how can we change the behavior of people who are lazy, who are not aware about their body, who are not educated, who are just lazy? What should we do with them? How can we trigger their enthusiasm for your wonderful natural defenses against diseases?
Well, it's such an important question because behavior determines outcome. In addition to genetics and our past life histories, I would say the answer that I would have given you is different than what I would say now, because I think that we are now entering an age of transformation in many aspects of society, whether it's racism, whether it's LGBT, whether it is looking at the woke politics of the world, gender balance. And so I think that one of the things that we have an opportunity to do by working together is to recognize that part of this societal transformation that's happening in so many different aspects of our world, and it's just not in one country, I think it really is spreading around the world, is to really become woke to the importance of food and our health by making more conscious choices and thinking before acting, in the same way that we're now beginning to think more consciously before speaking or before deciding in so many other aspects of our lives. I do think that what's very important is that we get the health community to rally behind this, because previously, the medical industrial complex, the medical establishment, was almost entirely galvanized by pharmaceuticals. Perhaps that was the appropriate thing in the 20th century, but now we're deeper in the 21st century at a time where we realize very starkly that biotech and pharma can't rescue us at every turn. And so now here's a whole opportunity, and food companies are responding to consumers that are demanding better foods as well. And so when the consumer demands, then the industry responds. I also think that investors and innovators and policymakers can work together to pave the way towards a easier path to create foods that are better for us. As I said, fresh is always something that's delightful and is never going to go away. That's a culture. That's part of our heritage. I think as humans is always eating and cooking and looking at what's around us and locally. The ubiquity of many foods at all times around the year is it's an artifact of our globalization, which has many benefits, but it's caused us to lose touch with our immediacy. But we're not going to go backwards into the Stone Age. We're going to go forward into the future, and this is why I really believe that there is what's the right word? There is lightning in the bottle. You can try to capture what Mother Nature actually has delivered in fresh foods, and if we could find a way to harness that and deliver it at scale, using the present day into the future, then we have an opportunity to be able to, frankly, turn junk food into health food, and then to message appropriately and get everybody to make it second nature to find choices that are affordable, accessible, and that also taste great. Because that's the other thing that we cannot forget, is that when it comes to food, it has to be appealing.
Why is it so difficult to proceed with this easy said or easy to understand measurements?
Well, I mean, I think this is where the work begins, right? We have to find a new starting point going forward. And I really do think that the idea of the pandemic, which made all of us stay home and develop a newfound relationship with our pantry and our refrigerator and our freezers and our dinner table and the kitchen, the stovetop, has led every single person to become a little bit more acquainted, to reconnect with a long lost relative of our existence, which is our food. You mentioned earlier this idea about, potential second waves and beyond. And I think that we have to actually, in the same way that we're going to be savvier moving forward about our external health, I'm very optimistic that we're all going to be savvier about our inner health as well, which can be influenced by our food. We need help, though. We need investors. We need life scientists. We need industry leaders. We need big companies to come in on this. We need regulators to come in. The food regulators for years have developed their position, thankfully, of protecting our food system, preventing contaminated foods, preventing harmful additives. Europe is very progressive on this, much more progressive than the United States. But what we really need to be able to do is to say, yes, keeping harmful elements away from our food is indeed important, but could we also create gateways to enable healthful additives to be put into our foods if they're natural, to actually augment? Can we make our foods help our immune super soldiers do even better? And I think we can. I mean, if we can actually drop everything and rally together as a planet to create these incredible virus vaccines, we certainly ought to be able to, even a small part, to team up together to really try to find ways to create food as medicine.
Thank you so much for your optimism. I think we need optimism. Yes, we can. It's so important to think that we can, and we will. Here, let's go to some of the audience questions, pragmatic audience questions. Here, for example, do you recommend food allergy tests to help figure out which good foods could actually be bad for one's body?
this is a question about testing in general, and I'll respond in a broad way. There are many tests out there now that are supposed to help us identify what nutrients we're missing, what foods we're allergic to, and to try to provide a more precise picture of what choices we should make. I think we're still in the very early days of that kind of technology because we are still understanding how our body responds. And in fact, the tests are not they're very precise, and we don't know exactly how to best interpret a test in terms of a health outcome. But I will tell you that our own, how we feel inside, how we feel after eating something is probably the best food allergy test you can possibly have. If you eat something and you wind up having discomfort, you know, we all gravitate towards comfort food, but all of us have eaten something before that as quickly as it goes into our mouth, or maybe a few hours later, we know that what we ate is a discomfort food. That to me is the best barometer for a potential food allergy, and then to kind of avoid that. So I think that that's one way of actually gauging what foods to avoid.
And it leads, of course, to the better body consciousness. I think there's a German word called Entfremdung. We are not estranged about nature, also about our bodies, and we have to get back into our bodies. We have all this mindfulness towards others. We have to be very mindful about ourselves. I think we should learn this again. Another very pragmatic, important question. What is your opinion, Dr. Lee, about food supplements?
So I think food supplements can be very beneficial, but I want to frame my answer by saying the idea of a supplement originated from the days in which there was malnutrition and hunger across populations, where there wasn't enough food. And so the idea that people were not able to get access to healthy foods and therefore were missing vitamins and nutrients in the body and suffering terrible catastrophic illnesses because of that, led to the idea that we could provide vitamins in a tablet and minerals and micronutrients to be able to at least bring our bodies up to speed, is how I call it. Now, in the last 20, 30 years, that industry has taken its origins and moved it into a world of claims. And that is to say, we can create a magic food with a magic berry from Latin America, from the Amazon, from the jungles, and then create a super cure for something. And I think this is where the claims are buyer beware. You have to really think about what is the evidence. All the foods that I just shared with you have deep scientific and even human evidence to support it. Science is really hard to refute. As I quote, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, he said, the beautiful thing about science is that it's true, even if you don't believe in it. And so I think this is the issue about dietary supplements. I think there are some medical foods that are supplements. I think that there are supplements that you can take, for example, resveratrol, which comes from red wine and grapes, is very difficult to get the right quantity from just by simply drinking wine or simply eating grapes, but you can really get quite a lot of it in a capsule. And so I think supplements have a role. I think what we need to do is to ask for the bar of evidence really for ourselves, so that we're really well informed before not only spending our money, but really asking that question, what is this going to do when I put it in my body?
Okay. William, you look so healthy and so fit. Here's a personal question from our audience. How does your diet look like? Do you have a nutrition routine yourself?
So I have a couple of principles I go by. I eat mostly a plant-based diet. I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not a vegan, and I'm not a strict vegetarian. I love seafood as well because the evidence shows that if you actually eat seafood, not just salmon, but a whole variety of seafood. In my book, I write about all these tables. I provide all these tables of different seafoods, shellfish. Most people don't know that the Manila clam has more omega-3 fatty acid than a salmon does, a piece of salmon does. So, so mostly fruits and vegetables. I try to buy as fresh and seasonal as possible. I like to cook food. I like to know how my food is cooked. I like to combine foods and have variety. Variety is very important. And I also don't eat too much. We know that caloric restriction, you don't have to be keto, you don't have to be fasting, but reducing your caloric intake by about a third has been shown to improve the telomeres, which are sort of our cellular aging, quite dramatically. And so, a general rule of thumb that I use is that if your eyes tell you to take a certain amount of serving on your plate, what I basically say is remove 1/3 of that, or take only 2/3 that you might want to take, and don't go back for seconds. And if you skip a meal or two, a breakfast or a lunch, a couple of times a week, that's probably healthy for you. So unlike what we used to say to children, you must eat every meal. I think that, and you sometimes feel busy as an adult, you're too busy to have lunch and dinner or breakfast. A couple of 2-3 times a week, that's actually not a bad thing. And so I do that. And also food, by the way, is not the only answer. You have to exercise regularly. I try to manage your stress levels, which actually can reduce your immunity, and also many other health defenses are compromised by stress. And good sleep, very, very important. Most people don't know the optimal temperature for sleeping that is good for your immune system is, I'm going to apologize by giving this to you in Fahrenheit, which is what we use in the United States, but 65 degrees Fahrenheit is actually the optimum immune building temperature for us to sleep at. So again, these are all little tricks that I try to maintain for my own health.
Good. Here's another pragmatic question. What about milk? Is milk with its vitamin richness a good empowerer for T cells against COVID-19? You didn't mention milk at all.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any milk product that actually has been shown to have a beneficial response against COVID in the pandemic. I will tell you that milk is an interesting carrier for vitamins, as you mentioned. I once went to a dairy farm to watch. This was in cow country, in dairy country, to watch them actually process the milk from the cow into the bottle. And I watched the whole thing. And as I was leaving the plant, the owner asked me if there's anything else that I wanted to see that I hadn't seen. And immediately I said, wait a minute. I didn't see where how does the vitamin D get into the milk? And he took me back in, and just before the bottle was actually sealed and sterilized, it went through a little metal box, and we opened up the box, and as the milk bottle went under, there was a little squirt that injected some vitamin D, and then it moved out and was sealed. And all of a sudden I realized, so milk really is a carrier for the vitamin. It's added to the milk. It doesn't mean that dairy products are useless. There are some cheeses, as it turns out, that actually can be viewed as probiotic foods. And so I'm not against dairy, but I also believe that more research is needed to be able to take a look at what the benefits actually are.
William, you really made us curious. I want to learn more. And now we are coming slowly to an end. Please tell us a bit about your foundation. What are you doing at the Angiogenesis Foundation? How can we take part in it? How can we support it? What should we do together?
Well, I started the Angiogenesis Foundation 25 years ago, really with a mission that if we can look at common denominators, and I talked at the beginning today about how we're all united. It turns out our health and diseases are also commonly united. And by looking at those commonalities, we can actually leverage scalable impact. And that's what we've done. In our first 25 years, we were at the heart of developing more than 34 FDA-approved drugs and devices for cancer, complications with diabetes, and vision loss. Now, as we are going into our next quarter century, we are really focusing on what is vascular health. And this is not necessarily something that the drug companies are going to be investing in. I view this as for the people, by the people. And so we're actively embracing the opportunity to work with our community, work with philanthropists, work with advocates, work with pioneers who want to get involved to know how to actually build our health going forward, not only with food, but actually very specifically. I mentioned to you that we discovered that one of the footprints that this virus for COVID leaves in our bodies, it damages our blood vessels. So we are beginning to suspect that even after you recover from COVID, the virus leaves behind damaged blood vessels. And this we could pay for in terms of our health for decades to come. So one of the big areas that I'm seeking support, philanthropic support, from my nonprofit charitable organization, is really to be able to bring together the world's leaders to be able to look into the crystal ball of the future, to say, if it turns out, even with a vaccine, that the virus that causes COVID-19 leaves behind a damaged circulation. Think about a party with wild children, wild teenagers in your house, and then the party is over, but they've damaged the entire house. If this is what we're dealing with in our blood vessels, we may be having these long-term problems that we're beginning to see clues on already. Brain problems, heart problems, kidney problems. It could be the eyes, it could be the wounds. It could make every disease that we were dealing with before COVID, before the pandemic, much worse. So I think there is a way to actually get in front of that. We might be 5 years ahead of the curve, but think about the lives that we could actually save. And so this is something that we're looking for our contributors, our donors, our philanthropic supporters, our foundations to really come together with us, our corporations to really support the work that we're doing. And it's really recharged my sense of purpose. I think that, while many people were receding into the background during the pandemic, just trying to avoid the harm of infection, what I realized, I felt a very strong sense of purpose, is that we have to lean into it, and we need to actually confront this beast so we can understand what it does to us, so we can actually successfully conquer it. And if not for this virus and this pandemic, there certainly will be more in the future. And so this is really one of the things that the Angiogenesis Foundation is doing now. You can find us online. We're at www.angio.org. We're very easy to find, very easy to support. And I just look forward to the collaborations of the future.
Super. Thank you so much. Dr. William Li, we learned from you to eat to be diseased. And we learned, all of you, what the true human of the 21st century humanist is. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for giving us this great talk. It inspired us. It makes us awake. Made us awake. Thank you for this. Ciao. Have
Ciao.
a good holiday.
Thank you.
Bye.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.